Hello and welcome. This is going to be a video tutorial for a love letter garland or love letter Valentine. I love garlands. I love seasonally appropriate garlands. So I wanted to do one for Valentine's Day this year. And this could also double though as a little cute little pillowy Valentine for a friend or students or classmates or t-shirts or t-shirts or anything else. So a fun little makeup mosaic crochet. I do it in the round, so you're working in a spiral the whole time. And that way there's no fringe left too that you have to try and cover up. We'll be working from a graph. If you prefer written instructions or you want to get a copy of the PDF pattern, I will link that below. It'll be available on both Etsy and Ravelry, but I will go ahead and hold this up for you if you want to take a screenshot of it to use. This project, I used Color Crafter by Scapious. It's an anti-pilling DK weight yarn. I love Color Crafter. It's super soft and squishy, and it's a dream to work with. It calls for a 4mm hook. For this project, because I want it a little bit tighter because we're going to put a little bit of stuffing in there, I'm going to have you use a hook that is 1mm smaller than the yarn that you're using calls for. So mine calls for 4, so I'm going to use 3. You can use any yarn you want for this project. So kind of a nice little stash buster there too. I'm also using the Color Crafter for my pom-poms, which I'm going to put in between my love letters on my garland. You could do anything you wanted there though. You could leave the pom-poms off. You could do felt wool balls. You could do, gosh, really anything that you can think of. You could crochet little balls and stuff them and put them on there. So kind of dealer's choice there. I'm going to use a fork, a dinner fork, to make my pom-poms, and I'll show you how I do it. You could also use a pom-pom maker. You could use a cardboard cutout template. You could do any number of things to make small little pom-poms. They're really a snap to make. A fork is just what I find easiest, and I have access to it. So I'm going to set that aside for now. We'll go over that in a little bit. You're also going to need a yarn needle. You're going to need some scissors. You will need some twine or extra yarn or whatever you want to string your garland on. And if you are making garland, and then some stuffing. Now this is way too much stuffing for the inside of a love letter. We're actually going to use such a teeny tiny small amount, and we're just going to kind of flatten it when we put it in. But I mean, you can almost see through it. It's such a little amount. Otherwise they get too rounded. You want them to stay flat so they still look like a love letter. They're just a little bit puffy. So we'll go over that a little bit more after we get started. But okay, so we're ready to go here. You've got color A and color B. We're going to start with color A. We're going to chain 36, and then we're going to connect that chain so that we're working in a spiral around and around and around. As we come to the end of a row, we are not going to slip stitch and chain 1 to start again. We're just going to keep going. So the only thing that happens at the end of the row is you change colors. And I'll show you what all of that looks like as we get going here. So the chart is red from bottom to top and right to left. So you have row 1, column 1. This is your first stitch here. So we'll do 36 stitches across, and then we're back to the beginning. And so then we'll do the next 36 stitches for row 2. If the square has an X in it, you are going to do a double crochet 2 rows below in the front loop only. If the square does not have anything in it, it's a single crochet back loop only. And I'll go over those as we come to them too. I also have a really nice beginner mosaic crochet video that could help if you've never done it before. I think you'll be able to figure it out just from this video, but if you wanted a little precursor, you could certainly do that too. It's extremely explanatory as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I am going to start with, clear my space a little bit here. I'm going to start with color A, which for me is red. I'm doing red as my main color, and then off-white as my complementary color. So we have 36 stitches across. We're going to chain 36. We don't need any extra stitches for turning because we're not going to be turning. We're just going to simply take the end of the chain and work into it so that it's in a circle. So we'll go ahead and make a slip knot. Slide this up so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. We're going to chain 36. So with your slip knot and loop on your hook, we'll chain 36. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, whoops, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Okay, so now we have chained 36. We are going to attach this chain without twisting. So this can be a little tricky, but you're going to have your back bumps from your chain. The back bumps are going to be on top. The stitches are going to be on the bottom, or the loops are going to be on the bottom. So let's tighten this around the hook just a little bit. So I'm going to put the back bumps on top, make sure it's straight. I'm going to circle it around, and I'm going to work my first single crochet in the back bump of that first chain that I made. And this is stitch number 1, row 1, column 1, the first single crochet right here. Okay, so now we're going to look at our chart. All the way across we have empty squares. There's no X's in any of these squares. So we're going to do a single crochet in every back bump all the way around until we get back to that first single crochet that we made. Now, it might be helpful to place a stitch marker in that first single crochet that you made so that you know where your end is. You also have a tail there too, so that's another indicator of where your row ends. So we're just going to go ahead and single crochet in each one of these back bumps, and there should be 36 because we had 36 chains. So go ahead and single crochet in each one of your back bumps to complete row 1 all the way around. Okay, I've got 2 left to go here. And the last one can be a little tight, so sometimes you have to coax it. Okay, so now I am back to my first single crochet that I made to connect the chain. And you can see that the row sits slightly above on the right that it does on the left. That's why we're just going to keep going in a spiral. We're not going to slip stitch, chain 1, and then make a single crochet as sometimes you do to move on to the next row. We're just going to keep going around and around and around, and it's going to be much cleaner looking. So what I didn't do that I should have done is when I made my last stitch, the last yarn over of that stitch, we want to change to color B. So we're going to do our last yarn over in color B, and that's going to get color B ready for us to start row 2. Okay, we're going to let red, color A, hang off just behind it. We're just going to leave it right there. We're not going to cut it. There's no reason to, because we'll just pick it up when we're ready for it again. So now row 2. Row 2, again, no X's in any of the squares. So we have another single crochet row. Whole row is single crochet. So we're going to do all single crochets in the back loop only and all double crochets in the front loop only of 2 rows down. And again, I'll show you what that looks like when we get there. So I'm going to go ahead and crochet in this white tail as I do these first few stitches. So here's our first stitch. We're crocheting in the back loop only because these are all single crochets. And we're just going to go ahead and do 36 back loop only single crochets in color B. Okay, I'm coming to my last 3 stitches here. All right, one more stitch, and on this stitch, we're going to once again make our last yarn over in our new color, which we're going back to color A. That tail is, come on, color B, get out of the way. That tail is still hanging there from where you dropped it when you added color B. So we're going to pick it up in front of color B. What I mean by that is start your stitch, your single crochet with color B, and then in front, not behind, in front of color B, you're going to pick up color A. Now we have color A back on the hook, and we're going to drop color B, and that'll be there when we need it next. So let's look at our chart. Now we're on row 3, and now we've got some action with X's. We have got 9 X's in the first 9 stitches, and then we have no X in the next box. So we know we've got 9 double crochets and 1 single crochet. And then we've got 11 through 27, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17 stitches, 17 double crochets, 1 single crochet. And then we've got 2, 4, 6, 8 double crochets to finish out the row. And then we're going to be back to start row 4. So 9 double crochets, single crochet, 17 double crochets, single crochet, 8 double crochets. So let's do that together. So we are starting out with a double crochet. A double crochet is done in the front loop of the stitch from 2 rows below. So that is where we are doing our double crochet. The first 9 will go in all of these front loops from row 1 because it's 2 below row 3, which is our working row. So let's do 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So see how that is sitting on top of the white? So it's covering up the white, which is how we're going to end up with our pattern. It's called overlay mosaic crochet because you're laying over on top of the stitches. So that is 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so there's our first 9 double crochets. Then we have a single crochet. That's going to be exactly how we did the single crochets from row 2. Back loop only, single crochet. Now we have 17 double crochets. Same way we did these 9. Whoops, these 9. They're going to be in the front loop of row 1 because that's 2 rows beneath row 3, which is the row we're working on. So 17 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Oops, 17. All right, 17 done. Now we have single crochet. Again, back loop only. We should have 8 stitches left because we have 8 double crochets to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Oh, and on your final yarn over, you're going to switch back, working in front, remember, not behind, but in front. You're going to pick up color B on that final yarn over. So we're back to color B for row 4. Now these will probably start to get twisted because you're constantly picking up in front, so they're going to start to twirl. I just find it easy enough to switch it around every now and then. So now we're working color B again. We've got all of our stitches ready to go for row number 4. Okay, so row number 4, we have single crochets on top of all of the double crochets from row 3. And then we have a double crochet on top of the single crochet from row 3. So this one will be pretty easy as we go around knowing what we're supposed to do. Single crochets on all the double crochets and a double crochet on top of the 2 single crochets. So we will start working our way around. We'll have 9 single crochets to start us off. Again, back loop only. I'm sure I sound like a broken record, sorry. That's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, now double crochet. Double crochet is going to go in the front loop of the stitch 2 rows below. We're working row 4. The row 2 rows below is the same color as the row we are working because we're alternating every row. We're alternating our color every row. So this is the front loop of 2 rows below. So that is what we're going to make our double crochet in. So now for this one, the white is overlaying the red. So we will do 17 single crochets back to the next double crochet that we have to do. So you can kind of see now with the overlay how you're going to get the design. It's all in where your single crochets and your double crochets are placed and what color ends up being on top. Okay, we're back to our next double crochet, front loop of that stitch from 2 rows below. It's going to be the same color. And then we'll finish out our 8 single crochets to end row 4. All right, on that last yarn over, we're going to switch colors again. In front, we're going to pick up red and we're going to drop white to the back. And now we're ready for row 5. So this is how we're going to keep going. And as you build it, you'll kind of see how the pattern's taking shape. Row 5, we're going to have 7 double crochets and then 5 single crochets, and then 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 double crochets, 5 single crochets, and 6 double crochets. So you'll just keep working this chart just like we just did those first few rows together until you get to the end of 17. And then the chart is completed and we will seal up both of the ends together. So go ahead and keep working your chart. And I will meet you back here at the end of row 17. Okay, so we have finished the chart now. So you are probably left with something, hopefully, that looks like this. You've got a heart on both sides. Almost could be like a can koozie. Hollow in the middle. If you are new to mosaic crochet and yours does not look as uniform as this, don't be discouraged. Make another one. You will be shocked how much your attention will change as you get used to this method of construction. So don't give up. We are done with color B now, so we will go ahead and snip color B off, and I'm going to go ahead and weave in that end because we are getting ready to seal up this end. So I'm just going to kind of bury my end in the same color here. All right. Trim off the extra. Okay, so now we're going to put our yarn back on the hook. Between each heart is an odd amount of stitches. So you can see like down here where there's 3, you have a center stitch here, and on the other side, same thing. There's 3 stitches in between the heart. There's a center stitch here. So there's 7 at the top. It would be stitch number 4. Those are going to be your end stitches. What I mean by that is when we fold it flat, you're going to have 1 stitch on this end and 1 stitch on this end. And those are going to be your end stitches. So you have a 36 stitch count total around. You'll have 1 stitch on this end, 1 stitch on this end, and 17 on the top, or I'm sorry, 17 on the top layer and 17 on the bottom layer as we seam this. So we want to get into that middle stitch after we're done with row 17. So we're going to slip stitch into that end stitch. So now we're in the center stitch. This is the center stitch of the group of 7 on top. So we're in the end stitch now. So what we're going to do along the top here is we're going to make single crochets and picots. Picots are the little collection of chain stitches that make it look like the edge of a stamp. So they just add a little bit of character to it, which is kind of fun, making it look a little more like a love letter. All right, so we're in that end stitch now. So we have 17 stitches on the top layer and 17 stitches on the bottom layer. We're going to stitch those together. So we're going to insert our hook into the next stitch, both loops, and then on the bottom layer, we're going to insert our hook into the first stitch there too. So the end is still in the middle, which is hard to see right now because I have it cinched tight, but it's right there. And we're going to make a single crochet. Okay, so that was the first stitch here and the first stitch here, and our end stitch is still right here on the end. Okay, now we're going to make a picot. So we're going to chain 3, and then we're going to slip stitch into the first chain and pull through. So that's your picot. It doesn't look like much right there, but once we carry on with our single crochets, it'll look better. So now we're going to make 2 single crochets in the next 2 sets of stitches, both layers again, because we're seaming this. So you want to get all 4 loops, the 2 loops from the stitch on the top layer and the 2 loops from the stitch on the bottom layer. So we're going to go in the next stitch here, and then we're going to go in the next stitch back here, and we are going to, I caught something I wasn't supposed to. Next stitch here, single crochet. Okay. Again, next stitch here, single crochet. Now we're going to make another picot, and that's going to be our pattern across 2 single crochets, 1 picot, 2 single crochets, 1 picot. So let's make another picot. Made a mess of that. There we go. All right, 2 single crochets. And another picot. 2 single crochets. And another picot. Again, a picot is a chain 3, and then you're slip stitching into the 3rd chain from the hook, or the first chain that you made in the group of 3. Same thing. 2 single crochets and a picot. Two single crochets and a picot. Two single crochets and a picot. 2 single crochets. And a picot. And 2 single crochets. And that leaves just the end stitch left, which is exactly right. And a picot. And then we're going to slip stitch, which sometimes the top is hard to find. Slip stitch into the side if you want, if it's a little easier. And then fasten off and cut our end. So we'll tighten that nice. And then you can kind of pull up on the picots and they turn right into a cute little ruffly border. So that's how we're going to seam up the other side too. But first, we've got to put a little bit of stuff in it. So like we talked about in the beginning, you do not need a lot. I mean, this is like not much stuffing at all, but it's still going to be plenty. And I kind of flatten it and make it into, you know, as well as I can, a little rectangular shape so that when I put it in there, it's not rounding this out too much. It's still kind of staying flat because you want it to stay flat. So that's plenty right there. And then we're going to locate the middle stitch on this side. So the middle stitch is the middle of the 3 on each side. So we're just going to follow that up, and here is our middle stitch right here. So I am going to attach color A to that middle stitch with a slip stitch. And I am going to do this end exactly the same way. I am going to do 1 single crochet in the first, and then a picot. And then it's a 2 single crochet, 1 picot pattern all the way to the end. And then we slip stitch into the other end stitch. So it's exactly the same way as the top was. So go ahead and finish the bottom, and then we will move on to tassels. Okay, I'm just getting to the end of my row here. I made my last picot, and I am going to go ahead and slip stitch into that end to finish it up. Now, you can fasten off, cut, and weave in. You'll notice that at the beginning of your rows, you have a little bit of white exposed. You can see that in the middle of our chart, so this edge right here is the middle of the chart. But where you made your color changes, you might have some white showing. If you're a loose crocheter, you may not have as much showing. I tend to be a little bit of a tight crocheter, so my stitches aren't always as squishy as they might need to be to cover that up. So if you have this and if it bothers you, now when you put your garland together, if it's flat against something, you're really not going to see it. But if it bothers you and you want to cover it up, before you fasten off, after you slip stitch to the end stitch, leave a long tail, put it on a yarn needle, and just weave it in and out of there. And that's a nice way to cover up most of that white. You can go, back and forth a couple of times if you want to, and it usually covers it right up. I'm going to go ahead and leave mine alone so that we can move on. So I'll trim that end, pull it nice and tight. I have a few tails to weave in, but I will do that later on this. And you can just squish it back up, and it's a nice little pillowy love letter. I love the way that those picots make those edges look. They're so cute. Okay, let's get going on our tassels. So I use a very technical device here for tassels. It's a dinner fork. So I'm going to use color B for my tassels. So I'm going to cut a length of yarn about 12 inches, double. So I doubled it and then cut it about 12 inches. And then I'm going to put it right through the middle of the fork. And I'm going to hold the two ends down the fork like that. And I leave my thumb right here. I'm going to go around the fat part of the fork 50 times with color A over top of the yarn that I'm holding. And I'm going to kind of anchor this with my thumb right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Whoops. 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So now I am going to take this side and bring it up through, and then we are going to tie this as tight as we can without breaking it. It's acrylic. Well, the yarn I'm using is acrylic, so it's pretty strong, but you still want to be careful because when it breaks, it's a bummer. Okay, so now I'm going to trim off the tail that's on the yarn and then some of the tails from what I just tied. And now we'll scoot it forward a little bit to loosen it up just a bit. And then we're going to take some really sharp scissors and wiggle them between the fork and the yarn. And cut it along the sides. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. Now, when I slide this off, it's not going to look like much yet. When you fluff it up, it needs a haircut. So we'll go ahead and move everything out of the way because this makes a little bit of a fuzzy mess here. I like doing it over a paper towel and then just throwing the paper towel in the garbage. And I just kind of shape it. Just kind of trim it and shape it until I'm kind of happy with the way that it looks. They don't have to be perfect. We like them to have a little bit of character, a little bit of personality. Okay. So that's how I make my pom-poms. I've got yarn flurries everywhere. Okay, so that's, I find it to be an extremely easy way to make pom-poms. So that's how I end up usually doing it. And I have a bunch set aside over here that will pull over. My board got all messed up. Okay. And we'll set the yarns aside. And it is now time to string. Okay, so this is the fun part. This is putting it together. I ended up with 9 love letters and 10 tassels. And I cut about 8-ish feet of twine. So I am going to go tassel, love letter, tassel, love letter, tassel, love letter, so that I have every other and there's tassels on both ends. So I'm going to put my yarn needle on my twine, and I suggest one with a pretty big eye on the needle for that part. And I'm gonna start stringing. So a word to the wise: when you're stringing the tassels, you want to be very gentle, because the yarn needle can catch some of the pieces of yarn and pull them out with it. Now, if it's just a couple, it's probably not a big deal, but if you get a bunch that come out, the tassel can actually fall apart. So see, that one actually brought quite a few out with it, but the tassel is still intact. So we're just gonna gently pull the twine through, very gently. I probably have more twine than I need, so I think I'm gonna stop there until I figure out what my plan is here. All right, so now I'm gonna get the yarn off the needle, and then we're gonna go through a love letter. So you wanna go through closer to the top. Otherwise, it could just kind of like, you know, if you go down too low, it's gonna flip down. Gravity's gonna grab the heavier. So you wanna go top heavy on it. Probably somewhere in the 1 to 3rd red row from the top, and then try and bring it out in the middle of the side. That's not quite the middle. That's definitely not. There we go. That'll work. Oh, I lost her. If you have a long tapestry needle, you might find that super efficient in this process. Mine is a little bit overkill. It's like 12 inches, so it's kind of difficult to work with. Again, gently pull it through. If you have a little bit of stuffing poking through, nothing to be alarmed about. You can adjust that. Okay, so now we have, see how that's hanging? Exactly the way I want it to be hanging. Gravity is pulling it down. So, okay, so now another tassel. And I'm just gonna go back and forth just like that until I get all of my elements strung on here. Let's see if this one does any better. Pulling the yarn. Find the slower you go, the better. Sometimes twisting it a little bit helps. Oh, look at that. A perfect one. Yay. All right, so keep stringing carefully, gently. Twine is super cute because it's rustic. Oh, look, I grabbed a piece right there. I got going too fast. Twine is super cute because it's rustic, but it has all the little fibers on it that want to grab, love to grab yarn. So just go slow and be careful and be patient, and it'll all come together beautifully. All right, so now we've got 3. I can't wait to hang it. It's gonna be so cute. All right, I'm gonna finish this up, and I will see you back here when I have everything strung. All right, you guys, I'm all strung up. And I love the way that this turned out. It's so cute. It really is. I hope yours turned out super cute too. I'm sure it did. And I can't wait to hang this. It's gonna go on my mantle. Hopefully it stays there, but my daughter has a tendency to grab my garlands and hang them in her room. So it may be short-lived on the mantle, but I can't wait to photograph it. And I really hope that you had fun with this one. Maybe you learned something, maybe you didn't, but either way, I hope it was fun for you. I will put the link, like I said earlier, down below, and to the pattern on Etsy and Ravelry, and it's a couple of bucks. I don't charge much for the patterns, but it is a nice formatted PDF if you're interested in that. And we have a Facebook group, Brooklyn Hookers Crochet Club on Facebook, and Instagram is at Brooklyn Handcrafted. I would love it if you would tag me in your projects so that I can see what you're making. I hope you guys have fun with this, and I look forward to the next time. Happy hooking.